Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 10,000 Heroes. I'm your host, Ankur Shah Delight. Every December, I throw a small party in Seattle to practice one of the main themes of my work, night vision. Everybody comes with their goals for the next year, and together, we destroy them. We come up with every possible failure mode, every creature in the night. Together, it's a powerful and vulnerable process of collective, destructive collaboration. And then we rebuild, one brick at a time. We come up with a strategy for every creature of the night. And in these strategies, wishful thinking, working harder, and changing your priorities are not allowed. We have to actually address the creature with the current version of ourselves, not some sort of a hopeful future version. Sometimes we can face it through knowledge or education, sometimes through accountability. Sometimes we just have to flow with it and design workarounds. And sometimes all we can do is accept. As always, the name of the game is momentum. Once you have a super clear sense of what you're trying to do, smart goals at every timeline for every area of life, the main block between you and your goals is you. You need to understand all the ways your patterns are getting in the way and how you can work with them. You need night vision. Vision and night vision together mean consistent motivation, inspiration, and action, no matter what happens to derail you over the next 12 months. So here's the video on night vision. If something in your gut just growled, that's what I need, then check it out. And if you want to come to that party in Seattle, let me know. What is night vision? So it starts with vision. And vision is more than just being able to see biologically. Of course, what we mean by vision here is being able to imagine an outcome that you really care about and want to achieve. So it's not just imagination, that's important, but it's really something that you can see yourself in a really deeply meaningful way living, right? So vision is the prerequisite for night vision. And you have to really be able to construct and imagine a future that's worth living in. That's what we mean by vision. Once you have a vision, what is night vision? Is it another kind of vision? Is it trying to see in the dark? Is it tapping into our subconscious desires that we didn't even know we had? No. Night vision is an acknowledgement of the darkness. It's a knowing and an acceptance that things are going to go wrong and break, and that there will be barriers and missteps and flaws and problems all along the way. And that instead of trying to ignore them or affirm our way around them, that there's actually a strategy and a methodology we can use to avoid some of these problems. So there's more to success than just having a vision and being hopeful. There's more to success than just working harder and telling ourselves, no, just do better when something goes wrong. That's the basic concept. There's actually an analytical methodology that's available. Because there are some things that are going to get in our way. And some of these things are knowable, some of these things are predictable, and some of these things are not. But if we want to maximize the likelihood of success, we should know all the knowable things and predict all the predictable things, even if it's not a pretty process to do so, and even if that doesn't mean we can immediately respond or somehow obliterate the possibility of these consequences. Knowing them, like the G.I. Joe thing, is a really important part of the battle. As a framework for this, we use integral philosophy, which you may or may not have heard of, but there's this model that many things in our conscious experience can be understood by applying this map onto it, or this two-dimensional axes. One is individual versus the collective or the group. That's like on the top and on the bottom, there's the individual side and the group side. And the other, left and right, is interior and exterior. The idea, I think, in general in the integral model is the more of these things we understand, the better. So you think about these quadrants with night vision, knowing what could go wrong is going to take place in all of those different quadrants. And so we will apply that. And what we want to focus on really is the things that you have control over. What we're really probably primarily concerned with is that top left quadrant, individual, interior. What are all the ways, once I know my goals, what are all the ways that I am going to trip and sabotage and block myself? And most of them are going to be in that top left. There's also going to be some in the body. What are all the ways that my body, my physical surroundings, maybe where I live, can influence this negatively or positively? that can be addressed. What are the ways that my family system, this is like the bottom left, will get in the way of this? If my goal is to write a novel and it takes 8 hours of writing a day for the next year, and I've got 5 kids, how is that going to interact? Like, is there a major flaw or vulnerability to this plan that involves my family and what's surrounding me? So we will use all the quadrants, but the tough stuff is what we want to focus on, of course, and hold your feet to the fire, which is going to be the top left. And so when we get to it, there are 3 different steps in this process. I call them awareness, identification, and response. And I'll just go over it really quickly right now so you can kind of imagine what we'll be doing and imagine the fun and discomfort of this process. So the awareness is a pretty important and pretty tricky thing, because a lot of the times we are not aware of the ways in which things have gone wrong or our contribution, like the role we've played in that. And so before we can identify all the possible risks to our plan, we have to know what we're suppressing and why. What are the ways in which we consciously keep ourselves in the dark? And once we do that, then we can have access, then we have the awareness, to all the things that have been going on that we've been participating in. And that is the identification. And the identification is kind of the juicy, scary part where you write down all the things that could possibly go wrong that have to do with you and your input. All the ways in which, if I look at the historical data, I have sabotaged myself, or I have delayed myself, or I have engaged, or, things that have to do with my body or my family, or things that are in the domain of influence that I have, all the ways in which those things have gone wrong in the past. And the third part is to come up with a response for each of the things we identify. And response is a general term. I don't mean that we'd respond in the same way. Here's a slide on risk mitigation that I found that comes back from that decision making under uncertainty work. Not everything can be responded in the same way. Some things you cannot change. And so the goal of this is not to be like, oh, I'm just going to be better and more enlightened and stop blocking myself and stop doing this and that and stop having a version of this and craving of that. Some of the things for the time period we're talking about, let's say if you're talking about a 1-year vision, we're looking at the night vision of like all the things that go wrong this year that could keep me from getting to my goal. Some of those things I'm going to accept. All right, fine. These are deep personality flaws or characteristics that I have. Sure, I want to evolve them in the long term, but in this year, I may just have to work around them. So I accept them and I figure out, all right, if I were to accept that, how could I still get to my goal? How could I be creatively working around this? Some of the other risks we can avoid. We can not do certain things, or we can change certain things in our life to avoid them. Some of the risks we can transfer into other situations or other scenarios by changing how the plan works, or delegating something, or just because we know it's there, we can work with it. And some of them we can actually reduce and we can prepare for. We can prevent. We can do some preventative work. So it really depends on what each of the things you have identified are, how you will respond. And there's a variety of ways. But the key thing, most people, when they come up with identification like, oh, I have this tendency to procrastinate, the response is just like, well, I just won't procrastinate. And that, my friends, will not work. So we have to do something more creative than that. Okay. So the idea here is to give you a set of tools. You come in, you have your vision. I mean, all of this, like I said in the beginning, depends on having a clear vision. You come in with a vision, and what we're going to come up with is all the possible ways that vision could be derailed, and then we're going to come up with responses for all of those possible things. And so then you leave armed with this whole workbench of tools to deal with all these different things when they come up. So you're never surprised or caught off guard. You have these tools you can use every day alongside remembering your vision, and they'll come from all those 4 quadrants. And you'll know when a problem comes up exactly how you're going to deal with it, because things are always going to break. Things are always going to go wrong. It's a lot like getting a flat tire. If you break down on the side of the road at night in the middle of the desert, far from cell reception, or in the middle of a snowstorm and it's freezing outside in the driving snow, there's basically 2 possibilities. Either you've prepared or you haven't. Either you have a spare tire and a jack and a tire iron and a blanket, or you don't. And one of those things, if you had the night vision and you were prepared, then you're back on the road in 5 minutes or 20 minutes, depending on how experienced you are. And the other, as you huddled, cold, and cramped in your car until the morning.